Iran, Israel upgrades stealth fighters' fears of Tehran nuclear bomb on the horizon. F-35s can now fly to Iran without mid-air refueling and a new one-ton bomb for the lethal fighter jet. Israel planning military options against Iran. In the face of Iran's continued development of a nuclear capability, Israel has upgraded F-35 stealth fighters. The Jerusalem Post, a new capability to fly F-35s from Israel to Iran without mid-air refueling. Israel planning military options against Iran if nuclear talks between the West and the Islamic Republic fail. Israel fears Iran stands just a few weeks away from obtaining fissile material needed for a first nuclear bomb. A minister recently said Iran has installed 1,000 advanced uranium centrifuges, a new underground site. The international nuclear watchdog IAEA being struggling to force Iran to cooperate on the stalled nuclear deal. Iran has turned off cameras installed by IAEA after Western powers introduced a resolution to censure it. Israel has also reportedly integrated a new one-ton bomb into the arsenal of weapons used by the F-35s. The bomb can be carried inside the F-35's internal compartment without jeopardizing stealth signature. Israel recently held its largest ever military drill and conducted a simulated attack on Iranian nuclear targets. Iran's Army Ground Forces commander, "We will raze Tel Aviv and Haifa to the ground for any mistake made by the enemy." Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett has conducted a surprise visit to the United Arab Emirates as efforts to salvage a deal over Iran's nuclear program remain stalled amid a deepening standoff with Tehran and held talks with the newly appointed UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed. Approved by 30 members of the IAEA board, with only Russia and China voting against, the motion was the first criticizing Iran since 2020 and came as talks flounder on reviving an accord aimed at curbing Tehran's nuclear ambitions. Now, ahead of the trip, Bennett hailed the IAEA motion condemning Iran's lack of cooperation with the UN body. He said, "I commend the International Atomic Energy Agency Board of Governors for its decision yesterday," adding a decision which clearly states that Iran is continuing to play games and is continuing to conceal and hide. "We see here a firm stance by the countries of the world regarding the distinction between good and evil, as they clearly state that Iran is concealing things." Now, the visit was been its second trip to the UAE after the Arab Emirates normalized relations with Israel in 2020 under the US brokered deals known as Abraham Accords. Experts widely believe that concerns over Iran's nuclear weapon helped solidify the ties between the two nations. According to media reports, the two leaders discussed the investment, food security, and other vital sectors. During talks with Sheikh Mohammed, Israel Prime Minister also expressed his condolences over Sheikh Khalifa's demise last month. Now, this was Bennett's first visit to the Gulf country after the finalization of the free trade deal last month between the two countries. The pact between the two nations abolished customs duties on more than 96% of all products traded between two-way trade between Israel and the UAE last year totaled some $900 million according to the Israeli figures. The UAE is only the third Arab nation to normalize ties with Israel after Egypt and Jordan, and Bennett and Sheikh Mohammed has met twice last year, once in Abu Dhabi in December and second time in Egypt. Marking 30 years of security and diplomatic relations, India and Israel are set to sign a special security declaration during Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz's visit to India. Gantz will inspect the Tri-Service Guard of Honor in presence of Defense Minister Rajnath Singh at South Block lawns. The special security declaration is expected to be largely ceremonial, reports in Israeli media claimed. Gantz's India visit was initially planned to take place in late March, but it was postponed amid a series of deadly terror attacks in Israel. Israel has sought to strengthen defense ties with India in recent years, particularly in the areas of air and missile defense. In recent years, India has purchased weapon systems worth billions of dollars. India and Israel established full diplomatic relations in 1992. The two countries' defense, economic, and diplomatic ties have grown in recent years, with Prime Minister Narendra Modi becoming the first Indian Prime Minister to visit Israel in 2017. Furthermore, Amir Abdullahian arrived in Delhi on Wednesday for a 4-day visit to India, his first ever as foreign minister. He had a packed schedule on his first day, with meetings with NSA Doval and External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. He also called on Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Iran claimed that India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval had given assurances to visiting Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian about action at the government level against those behind the remarks against Prophet Muhammad. Mr. Abdullahian is on a 3-day visit to India with an aim to further enhance the bilateral ties as well as to discuss key regional and global developments, including the situations in Afghanistan. The Ministry of External Affairs tweeted a warm welcome and says the visit will boost deep historical ties. The Iranian minister will travel to Mumbai and Hyderabad after concluding his engagements in New Delhi. India and Iran has been jointly focusing on improving connectivity between Southeast Asia and Central Asia, located in the Balochistan province on Iran's southern coast. Ministry said that Jaishankar appreciated the role of Iran in facilitating India's medical assistance to Afghanistan, including supply of COVID-19 vaccines to Afghan nationals residing in Iran. Both sides acknowledged the significance of bilateral cooperation in the field of regional connectivity and reviewed the progress made at the Shahid Beheshti Terminal, Chabahar Port. The sides agreed that the Chabahar Port has provided much needed sea access to landlocked Afghanistan and has also emerged as a commercial transit hub for the region, including for Central Asia. They reaffirmed their commitment to continue to cooperate on the development of Chabahar Port. Teams from both countries will be meeting soon to address operational aspects, the ministry statement said. His visit comes 2 days after Iran joined other Gulf nations in summoning India's envoys to protest the remarks made against the Prophet. India has responded by saying that the comments are made by fringe elements and do not reflect the views of the government. The Iranian foreign minister visited Delhi. It was a 1-day visit in Delhi, even though he is in India for almost 4 days. He goes to Mumbai and Hyderabad later, but he held a key talks with the Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, and a pact was also signed. The visit happens in the shadow of what has happened over the weekend, the Indian envoys being summoned by various West Asian countries, including by Iran, over the remarks made by now suspended members of the ruling party. But nonetheless, when it comes to talks, key focus areas are on people-to-people relationship. A lot of Indians travel to Iran as pilgrimage. A lot of Iranians come to India. Second, of course, is on connectivity. Chabahar Port, as you pointed out, is one of the key projects India is keen on, given that it provides India connectivity not only with Iran but also with Afghanistan and Central Asia. There are, of course, regional and global issues that are the third areas of focus, which of course includes Afghanistan. We know that India has started conversations with the Taliban last week. We know an Indian team was in Kabul. So Afghanistan remains another area of conversation. And fourth, and the most important part is, will India import oil from Iran? Because remember, before 2019, Iran was among the top 3 the countries from which India used to import oil from. But that changed after the sanctions. The American sanctions, and since then, of course, there has not been any import from Iran when it comes to oil. But in the aftermath of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, we know that India is getting cheap crude oil from Russia. and India is keen to get more cheaper oil from various other destinations. So, will Iran feature back? Is the big question. Also, the two sides reaffirmed the importance of providing immediate humanitarian assistance to the people of Afghanistan and reiterated the need of a representative and inclusive political system in the war-torn nation, the statement noted. The Iranian minister also informed Jaishankar on the current situation pertaining to the 2015 nuclear deal, also known as Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, and exchanged views on the Russia-Ukraine war. Earlier, Amir Abdullahian called on Prime Minister Narendra Modi and also held a meeting with the National Security Advisor Shri Ajit Kumar Doval. Finally, concluding, we can say that there may be Iran-Israel war. Israel has threatened military action to destroy Iran's nuclear program if need be. And between this, India, a rising power in world, wants good relations with both Israel and Iran, a fact that has not gone unnoticed by either country and has turned it into a new stage for competition between the Middle East rivals. Therefore, Israel wants India to be in its favor. So guys, this was for today. Give us your thoughts on this in the comment section, and if you appreciate our content, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Share this video with your family and friends. We will meet soon in new video. Thank you. Jai Hind.